Prologue. Freya. November 1879. "It's here!" Danny's shriek nearly pierces Freya's eardrum. She winces as Angelica shoots their little sister a look as piercing as her voice. They're in the tea room at their house in London this afternoon, enjoying a rare burst of sunshine as it shyly peeks through the winter clouds and streams through the window. And now Danny is running into the room at full tilt, waving something at them. "What are you on about, Danny?" Marigold asks, not even looking up from her notebook, where she's scribbling notes about some sort of invention or another. Danny skids to a halt in front of them and throws herself down on the end of Freya's lawn chair, nearly causing it to tip over in her dramatics. "Careful, dear," Freya warns gently, grabbing her cup of tea before it spills all over her gown. Mama would never let her hear the end of it, and Danny never gets the blame because she is the baby. "It's here!" Danny's clutching a slim book, bound in a pink-coloured linen and embossed with a riot of ivy leaves in gold. As Danny tilts the book toward Freya, she catches sight of the title, The Silk Secrets. "What's that?" Freya asks. "A novel?" It seems a bit slim for that. "A book of poetry," Danny says. "Scandalous poetry," Marigold adds with a wry smile. At least according to everyone who tried to get it banned in Britain. "Didn't you read the Prime Minister's editorial about it in the paper last month?" Danny asks. "You know I like books over the news," Freya says, but her interest is piqued. What's so dangerous about words on paper? "I swear the Prime Minister seems to be as against poetry as he is against women riding bicycles," Danny muttered. "I believe," he said, and I quote, because I remember it for being so absurd, "women with no propriety will be inspired to cavort in the streets together if such poetry was held up as having literary merit," Marigold says with an eye roll. I don't know about him, but that sounds like a good time. Freya ducks her head to hide her smile, but Marigold's wife, Roz, doesn't bother. Roz snorts with laughter beside her. "I would be displeased if you went cavorting without me, my love." Marigold takes her wife's hand and kisses it. "I would never, darling," Marigold says. "I promise the only cavorting I'll do is with you by my side." "You too," Angelica says with an affectionate but slight shake of her head. She has never been one to approve of displays of affection between couples, even among family, but Freya thinks how comfortable Roz is among the sisters is sweet. Roz is so formal around the rest of the family, though Freya can hardly discount her for that. Freya's father, Lord Tallon, is a formidable man of tradition who would intimidate even the strongest of suitors. His imposing presence would put anyone who married into their close-knit family on their best behavior. Angelica snatches the book from Danny, examining it with growing concern. "Danny, did you really buy such a thing? And with the pocket money Papa gives you?" Angelica looks like she's 2 seconds away from tapping her foot in disapproval. "Papa has always told us we can use our pin money for whatever we wish," Danny says stubbornly, taking the book back from her. "You know he would not approve of this," Angelica scolds, trying to make another grab for the book. Danny hurls it at Freya, who catches it calmly, tucking it under her arm to hopefully stop an impending wrestling match. Angelica is a hair puller, and they have a ball to attend tonight. "Now, Angelica," Marigold says, "poetry is a map of the soul and heart. Surely that cannot be harmful." "You just say that because you want to read it as well," Angelica says. "Much has been written about the poet," Marigold admits. "Miss Ivy Yarder Lovell has made quite the name for herself in certain circles. And with certain behavior," Danny adds with a smirk. "Why, they say she is the reason Miss Astoria Parker called off her wedding last year." "That was her?" Freya asks in sudden interest. She looks down at the book of poetry. The scandal of Miss Astoria Parker's wedding was so great that the gossip reached them in England all the way from New York. "I wish a famous poetess would come whisk me away from my aging groom," Danny sighs. "How romantic." Freya looks down at the book, tracing the ivy leaves with her finger. "So the poems are about their grand love story? That seems more romantic to her than interrupting a wedding." Someone writing lines and lines of poetry all about the love they hold. That is the stuff of great romance. You see, that's what's so scandalous, Danny says. According to my friends who have read it already, it's very clear Ivy's poems are about many different women. Scads of them. Talk is, every poem is about a different woman. How many poems are in here? Freya asks. And there are rumours that Miss Parker quietly married another man just weeks after running away from her own wedding, Danny continues, oblivious to Freya's question. It seems like Ivy Yada Lovell is a rake, and she doesn't care who knows it, Danny sighs enviously. What a world Manhattan must be. Why was I born in England instead? We are ever so stodgy. You are talking nonsense, Danny. Women cannot be rakes, Angelica says. Well, you obviously have never been to the bridge, Danny says with a giggle. Well, of course not, Angelica says. It is not my place or community. It is yours and Marigold's. All are welcome at the bridge, Marigold says, as Roz and Danny nod. But I do agree with Danny. Women can be just as cavalier with other women's hearts as men. Quite right, Roz says. Did this Ivy do Miss Astoria Parker wrong, do we think? Freya asks, flipping the book of poetry open, curious to spite herself. The fine vellum speaks of luxury, the dedication simple. For her. But who is her if the poems are about various women? Danny said scads. How many exactly is that? I guess we'll have to read and find out, Danny says as their mother calls for them from the other room. Freya's sister grabs the book out of her hands, running off, and Freya sighs, gathering her shawl and sewing, getting up to follow her. As the winter snow starts to fade in the coming months, they will head to Berkshire to their country manor for the start of the social season. With 2 failed seasons prior, this third round will be critical for Freya. It's hard not to feel the pressure to make a decision, a fact she is trying not to worry about. She dreads the stuffy ballrooms and instead chooses to think of swimming at the lake and playing rounders on the lawn. Soon, she thinks, I'll be home. By the time Freya stumbles upon the pale pink book of poetry again, several months have passed since that day in London. The grey of fall and the holidays has come and gone, and she finds herself wandering around the library of Tallon Manor one rainy Saturday. That silly book, The Silk Secrets, catches her eye, tucked haphazardly among Shakespeare's sonnets. She shakes her head with a smile. Leave it to Danny to abandon her book of illicit love poetry lying about in the family library. Angelica would never let her hear the end of it if she discovered such a thing during her frequent visits to the manor. At first, Freya merely picks it up to take it to her sister and maybe scold her a little. But, as she pulls it from the shelf, she remembers Angelica and Danny's argument those months ago. Can a woman be a rake? Settling into the armchair closest to the fire, she flips open the book out of curiosity and begins to read the opening line of the first poem. Your skin against mine. Secret touches. Freya slams the book shut. My goodness, she says. If her father knew Danny was reading such things, he would be most displeased. Such things are not for unmarried ladies to read. Knowing her mother will call her for dinner at any moment, she tucks the slim volume of poetry behind a thick set of Shakespeare's complete works and hurries out of the library. Joining her family at the table, Freya loses herself in the rhythm of conversation and the clink of silver on fine china. Don't you think, Freya dear? I'm sorry, what was that, Papa? She asks. That Jonathan is a strong name for a boy. Freya smiles at Angelica, who has just found out she and her husband are expecting their second child, and is abuzz with name choices. Oh, Papa, you know that if Angelica has a boy, she'll name it after you. Exactly, Angelica agrees. There is no question, Papa. You girls are very sweet, Papa says. I think you should name the baby after me, Danny says grandly, and Freya laughs so hard she has to hide it behind a napkin. What? Her little sister protests. It's a name that works for a boy or a girl. You are quite right, Papa says. It's why we chose it back then, Mama says, and the two of them exchange a bittersweet, wistful look. "Are you visiting the village after church, girls?" Papa asks, clearly wanting to change the subject. "I am," Freya says. "The Reverend wants me to check in on the Hollings, and I have sweets for the children." "You cannot stuff them full of sugar, Freya," Papa warns. "They need hearty food to fuel their farm work." "The children deserve some fun, Papa," Freya insists gently, especially after such a hard winter. "They aren't all working the farms after all. They're going to school." "You have a gentle heart, dearest," Mama tells her. "I'm just trying to follow your example," Freya says. Her mother is one of the most beautiful and gentle ladies she knows. Everyone admires her. Freya can only hope to be revered as she is someday. "I will indulge you, my dear," Papa says. "But they must remember their places and you your own. I don't want you distracted from your social obligations." "Of course," Freya says. "Whatever you say, Papa."
Chapter 1. Ivy. 5 months later. The rattle of the carriage wheels against well-kept roads is almost like a lullaby to Ivy after 2 full days of travel. Her eyes drifted shut somewhere after they passed the 3rd or 4th county named something Shire. She'll have to ask what a shire is exactly when they arrive at the manor house. Surely someone will know. Her mind drifts, the carriage rattle lulling her back into a near sleep, her head pillowed against her bunched-up pelisse in the carriage wall, when something hits her on the knee. Ivy's eyes crack open as Prescott taps her knee again with his tall hat. "Yes, brother dear?" she asks sarcastically. "Are you really going to sleep the whole time?" "At least I don't snore like you," Ivy says. "Lies," Prescott insists. "I'm quiet as a mouse when I sleep." Ivy snorts. Her only brother is many things, sarcastic but sweet when need be, loyal to a stunning degree, and when she's feeling generous, handsome in that pretty dandy way some women lose their minds for. But he snores like a steam train roaring down the tracks at 60 miles an hour. "You better hope whatever wife we find for you in England is a deep sleeper if you plan to share her bed, is all I'll say," Ivy tells him. "Now let me nap in peace. I need to be well rested by the time we arrive." "Ivy," Prescott says, a bit of a pleading note in his voice. Ivy sighs. "What? Are you going to eat your meat pie?" He points to the basket the inn owner's wife packed them. It's simple English fare. Meat pies, cold cuts of chicken, and a brown bread with hearty slices of cheese. Prescott devoured his pie hours earlier. She should have known he'd have his eye on hers, too. "Yes, I am going to eat it," she says. "Don't you dare." He lets out an entirely put-upon sigh that makes her roll her eyes. "What's really bothering you?" she asks, giving up on sleep now. She's promised herself she'll support Prescott in any way she can. It is going to take both of them to pull this whole thing off, after all. "I'm nervous about arriving at the estate today," Prescott says. "I don't know how to be a viscount." "I'm not sure that being a viscount is actually something you learn," Ivy says. "I think it's just something you are. And according to all those letters we got from the estate's lawyers, solicitors, you are Viscount Yada Lovell." "This inheritance seems false still," Prescott says. "Almost like a prank. I always thought of father and grandfather as American. I never envisioned myself even visiting England, let alone living there." "I've always made plans to visit Japan and Mother," Ivy admits. "England hadn't really crossed my mind as a place to go." "And now," he trails off, the weight of the responsibility heavy between them. "I suppose now it's my home." "Our home," Ivy says. "For as long as you need me, I'll be by your side." She pauses. "Well, until my publishers demand I do another tour for my next book of poetry. Or until your wife kicks me from your palatial mansion, of course, because I'm so very annoying," she adds with a grin. "You're only a little annoying," Prescott says. "And just to me, everyone else is either scandalized by you or in raptures about your talent." Sisters should be annoying, Ivy tells him. It will be all right, Prescott. She tries to sound reassuring, but she's just as unsure as he is. Making a new home is always an unsteady journey, but this is more than that. They're entering a brand new world, one full of responsibility and conditions, and a society completely different from their American life. Ivy has always enjoyed a large amount of freedom and independence in Manhattan, not just because her works of poetry give her notoriety and a good living, but because of the inheritance from their father that was split between her and Prescott. That is a freedom many of her fellow poetesses do not have. And what a name she has made with that freedom. She smirks at the thought. It's not every day a whole prime minister accuses you of being a harbinger of sapphic doom. That gave her a laugh last month when her British publisher informed her of the prime minister's warning in the Times. But now Prescott is to take his spot among all the lords and dukes who likely agree with the men who grumble and write editorials about her. That is a little nerve-wracking. She doesn't want her work to be the reason Prescott is socially scorned. English society is so different. It has dukes and duchesses and debutantes desperate to marry those dukes and duchesses. In an age of modern change as railroads blossom, trade increases, and great machines are built, all while new scientific heights are being reached every day to solve problems. Things like royalty and dukes seem almost quaint. England certainly leads in some areas of progress, but in others, it is woefully behind. I feel very unsure of myself, Prescott confesses. These are uncharted waters, and we shall traverse them together. Ivy and Prescott have made a dastardly duet for years now. They aren't without their reputations, though Ivy always feels it is unfair when Prescott gets a pass for being a flirt, and she certainly does not. A fresh start after that whole mess last year is appealing to Ivy. She didn't mean to become part of the story of the century by interrupting the wedding of the century, but she also couldn't let her Astoria Parker marry a man 5 decades older than her. But while Ivy may have saved Astoria, she didn't spare herself from heartbreak. Astoria married the man she really wanted just weeks after Ivy's rescue. And Ivy tried to not feel as used as she felt heartbroken, while her publishers leapt on the rush of interest in her work after the interrupted wedding. Her 2 volumes of poetry are now a global sensation, something she only dreamed of before. But with worldwide reach comes the kind of fame and talk about her she's not used to. This break in England is just the thing she needs, especially because she is suffering from a hellish case of writer's block.